Kind of built it out for customers that, had never used AutoSupport. Bill, is that you calling user number 2?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. How you doing?
All right. How you doing today, Carl?
Hey, doing pretty well. We've got a pretty big room here of mostly NetApp team. We've got some of our SEs on the line. So it's a pretty small room. If you have any questions as I run through this, just, stop me at any time. We can make this as interactive as possible.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I know because you and I have already sat down and looked in your environment, we have AutoSupport turned on. But as we walk through this, maybe we can answer some questions or get a little bit more visibility into, what's happening and what the options are. So,
all right.
My goals for today are really just to go through what is AutoSupport for OCI specifically. You as a NetApp customer know there's AutoSupport for our hardware as well. This is a completely separate instance, so just be aware. We're going to talk about the benefits of enabling it, some of the logistics and security communication methods, and then we've got a live demo for showing how to turn this on. So feel free to stop me at any point in time as I go through this. AutoSupport, it's really just our phone home or our mail home mechanism. It's designed to send information back to NetApp teams, such as our support teams, development teams, or SEs, to help with fixing customer issues, customer support cases, expediting releases of patches, service packs, updates, and just really helping discover and fix issues. So you'll see there's a couple different benefits here. One that's not listed here that I like to call out for our OCI Customer Success Program customers is the assessment. So, Bill, you and I went through an assessment of your environment. That was all possible because of AutoSupport being turned on. So, any other customers that are looking to take advantage of that free assessment from our team, we require this to be on. Otherwise, we don't really have any information to go poke around and look at for any sort of health risks. So keep that in mind. It's a huge benefit there. Now, there's many different benefits behind turning this on, aside from that, and I'm not just going to necessarily read through this list, but there's really some that I think are very important. So one is that AutoSupport's obviously going to assist our support teams in engineering and troubleshooting issues. Now, one of these key aspects is non-business hours. So if something happens at, say, 2 in the morning and we need to get this fixed, it's a big problem. If we have AutoSupport turned on, our support teams already have everything they need to dive into the issue and see what's going on. If we don't have AutoSupport turned on, then someone has to go into the office or get access to the machines, get a hold of the appropriate logs, zip them up, send them off to NetApp support. It's not a super painful process, but it is something that's going to have to manually be done. And if it's a P1 case, this might need to be done immediately. It's something that has to be taken care of. If we had AutoSupport turned on in the first place, this information would already be available to support. So another benefit with this is when we talk about the issue specifically. A lot of issues don't just happen right off the bat. There's not just one thing that occurred that created this issue. A lot of them, there's a change that was made, say, so many days or weeks ago, and then one day that becomes an issue. So when we have AutoSupport sending back regularly, our support teams have historical information. They can go in and look for trends. They can look and see what was set up, how it was set up, and when something changed to go find that problem and help you resolve it quicker. So it's very beneficial in that way. It's also going to accelerate the remediation of any reported issues. So it might not necessarily be just your issue. We might say, roll out an update, and maybe there's a bug that only 1 or 2 customers runs into. But we can get to work on that immediately and get it fixed, and then notify proactively other customers or create a patch to fix this where other customers might not have even known that there could have been an issue. So a lot of big benefits there. And really it helps our teams to better build out future updates by having all of this information from our different customers. Any questions on these benefits? Okay. So first question I usually get from customers when I'm talking to them one-on-one is, you know, what's being sent? How secure is this? So it's a certified solution, and every single transmission is fully encrypted. Now, we're going to recommend HTTPS as the method of transportation. But the reason we recommend this is because then you're going to get that additional layer of encryption and a couple other benefits that come along with it. But if you guys are looking for the most secure method of transport to make sure everything is locked down, you're getting 2 layers of encryption by using HTTPS. The other methods still are going to be encrypted, but you won't have that additional layer. So the only people that are actually going to be able to see this information is NetApp support teams, our product operations or development teams, so they can work on those bugs, updates, and patch releases, and then your systems engineer. So one example there is what I was just talking about a couple previous slides, where our team, our customer success team, can actually give you guys a free assessment of your environment to go in and see, is everything set up correctly? Are there any issues that are going to prevent you from getting the most out of the software? And the only way that we can do this is by taking a look at your AutoSupport data. So if you have it on, we can do that. We do have a scrub utility. So if any of you guys are worried about what's actually being sent, you can run it through the scrub utility before it gets sent back to NetApp. This is going to take care of anything that's considered, so your IP addresses, host names, storage controller names, anything along these lines. This data, once it's sent back to NetApp, is stored for a period of 3 months, and then it just drops away. So at any given time, we should have 90 days of historical trends to see what's happening if you have any support, any sort of support issue. Any questions on the security of AutoSupport?
Nope.
Okay. So AutoSupport is set up ahead of time to send between. If for any reason you need to modify it, our support teams can help you get this changed. Now, when we talk about OCI, there's always the operational server and the data warehouse. So these are going to work a little bit differently. In the live demo, I can get in and show you. But our operational server, this is going to be sent every 2 days. So again, we can change this if we need to, but by default, every 2 days, it'll be reporting back to us between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Now your data warehouse, this is going to go out on Sunday nights between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., just once a week, if you turn that on. They're both separate, so we'll go over that. As far as what's being sent back to us, there's going to be a .zip containing all of the logs, and you'll see there's an option to include the logs or leave them out. We've got a .gz that holds basically a backup of your OCI database, so if something happens, that can be restored, but that doesn't hold any of that additional log information. We get the data source health information through HTML. There's NFO containing your system information, and then a .text containing your MySQL and thread dump info. Okay, as far as the types of data sent, it really depends on what options you choose. This is kind of a comprehensive list of what's possible, so some of these may or may not be sent depending on how you set it up. So we can send the inventory and performance data back to NetApp. We can send the logs. We can send the OCI configuration information, status information of your acquisition units and your SQL Server, thread dumps, your licensing information, some of your OCI server information like your resources, CPU, RAM, memory, and such, some of your performance profiling data, and if you turn this on with the data warehouse, you can send the inventory and performance data from the data warehouse as well as some logs from the data warehouse and Cognos and what's happening there. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay, so one option when you send these is to include extended logs. This is highly recommended because these extended logs contain data source recordings. So if you ever have a problem and it is actually with a data source, which I'd say talking with most customers are doing health checks, that's one of those things that may get set up incorrectly or change happens on the data source, and before you know it, you've got a failing data source, so you're missing that information. If you have that issue, the first thing NetApp's going to need is your extended log so they can get in and figure out what's happening. So if you choose to send these, again, they have everything they need to triage the issue. Now, if you don't, there is methods of bundling this up and sending it off to NetApp. It's actually very easy to do, but it has to be done manually. And again, it only gives that point-in-time information versus the historical trends. So these extended logs contain not only these data source recordings, but your MySQL configuration file, some of the other log files from different components of the software, disk models, and your server profiling information. So again, highly recommended. It's up to you. It will increase the size of that transmission back to NetApp, but it's going to provide a lot of value. If you have any questions on that, let me know as you're getting it set up. As far as file system level information that we can see within these auto supports, we can see the operating system. We can see those resources we talked about before, CPU, RAM, disk space. We can see the list of drives, whether it's logical or physical, some of your system environmental variables like your NAS paths and such, and then your page file location and size. Okay, so not a lot beyond what's happening with just OCI software. As far as communication goes, we have different options. You can set this up to run over email, SMTP, FTP, HTTP, or HTTPS. We highly recommend HTTPS, especially for security-sensitive organizations or large data centers. First off, it provides that additional layer of encryption. It also allows for proxy support. So when I bring up those security-sensitive organizations, you're going to see the only way to use proxies is with HTTPS. And it's also going to support larger auto support transport sizes. So just key in some of those large environments. Now, FTP, HTTP, they still work very well. One of our old methods that we recommended was FTP. It still works great, can be used. Email or SMTP can also be used. Just keep in mind this does have the potential to impact your email servers. Take, for example, if you are a large customer gathering lots of different data and you're sending this off every so often, you've got extended logs and performance data included, you might have 3-4 gigs plus of data being sent back. So as you can imagine, this can be a little taxing on the email server. Fortunately, it is going to break these up. So we have a rule in here if you're using email that we can set a maximum transmission size, and if for any reason it goes over that, it's going to break these up into 5 meg segments. Then once the last segment makes it to NetApp, it's just going to combine these and make them available to our support teams. So it is possible, but as you are aware, if you've got 4 gigs and you're breaking up into 5 gig segments and sending those off, it's still going to take some time and tax that email server. So use HTTPS if you can. FTP is also possible. Email if you have to. Any questions on the methods of communication? Okay, take silence as a no. So this is just a look. We're going to jump into a live demo. I put a couple screenshots in here just so that when I send this deck out, any of you that are interested have this. Now, keep in mind, this is an older version. I think it's 7.2.6 when I took these screenshots. So many of you are running 7.3.0, 7.3.1. Looks just slightly different. And the biggest difference there, we're still going to go to our admin, down to our setup, and then the auto support and proxy is going to be broken off from the backup on newer versions. But it should still all be under setup. So find your auto support tab or ASUP, click that, and then you're going to get this screen here, and this is where we can plug in the settings and choose our method. So I'll show you that a little better in the live demo. And for data warehouse, we just jump into the data warehouse administration portal. go down to our troubleshooting, and then come up here and hit enable. And then it's just going to go ahead and run again every Sunday night between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So let me go ahead and pull up the live demo. Give me one moment here. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay? Assets dashboard?
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
perfect. So to turn on auto support, again, we go to admin, just come down here to setup, hop over to ASUP and proxy. This is 730, I believe, this lab that I'm running. All we do is come in here and check auto support. Now, a couple things I need to point out here, and one of them is very, very important. So the most important thing here is the site name. So a lot of customers, they're going to set up their company name, and then they might put in something that's, works for them as far as the site name. But the thing to point out is when we go in and say support needs to go find your last auto support, or your SC wants to help you out assessing some issues or assessing the health of your environment, so they want to go locate your auto support, we have to search by site name. So it's really important here that we put some sort of unique identifier in. We cannot find this by the company name. So you can take the time, build out your company name. It's still good information, but most importantly, include a unique identifier in the site name. So this environment here happens to be Lab on Demand. That's the LOD. The recommendation here would be something like putting LOD and then something unique and then whatever the environment is. If you've got multiples, just come up with some unique identifier. That way, when we need to go look, it's very easy to find, right? We can just search for the site name and pull it up. A challenge we've had in the past is some customers might be testing something, so they plug something in temporarily, let's say something like demo, and then they go ahead, run a test, send it back. Well, if we have 5 or 10 customers that do this, then it kind of becomes a mess because I'm going to jump into my demo folder, and it's a little bit harder to locate exactly which auto supports we're looking for. So keep that in mind. Now, once we've got this site name set up, we need to choose what we're sending. So by default, we've got this configuration data included. Unfortunately, in the UI, there's no way of really turning this off. With that being said, this is really the configuration of your OCI operational server. So at the very least, if something happens, our support teams can help you get that back online. But it's not enough information to help troubleshoot acquisition unit problems, data source problems. This is where the logs is going to come in handy. So just check the box if you want to send that. Now, for any of you running 7.3 or later, your performance data, we can keep up to 7 days of performance data on the server. Any of you that are using that know there is a 90-day performance archive, but that's a little bit different than auto support. So with auto support, we're only going to send 7 days worth of data, and if you choose, you can just go ahead and check the box. This can help if there's ever, say, a performance issue, or I should say a data source issue on the performance side of things, because then support teams have that data available and can look into it. Otherwise, they can have you again get the log sent back to them. So you can check either of these boxes or just one of them, but you will have to leave the configuration data. Then choose your method. Again, I recommend the HTTPS, but it's up to you guys. If you do use email, you'll see this box opens up, and you'll want to come in here and choose that size limit. This is really important because a lot of customers, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's been a couple I've spoken with that had, say, that 500 meg limit, but they didn't ever set this up, and so it was just failing time after time. So if you do use this, check what your transmission size is capable of, and then make sure and set this size limit. And then you can split the files, and you can customize this, but leaving it 5 meg is easy to do. If you guys are using HTTPS and you want to use the proxy, it's simple. Just check the box, plug in your information, test your connection, and hit save. Now, that's another thing to note here with auto support. When we enable it, it's best to run a test right at that point in time. I think we can test from within this environment, so it'll take a minute to run. But test that. Once you get the green box back around here saying test successful, make sure and hit save. Okay. Unfortunately, I made the mistake a couple times myself where I get this stuff set up, hop over to change some other settings, and completely discard everything that I had completed. Any questions so far on how to get this configured or enabled?
Nope.
Okay. Now, if for any reason you need to say send, so here's that thing. It's basically telling me I didn't hit save. Anywho, when I come over to troubleshooting, I have the option of sending a OneTime AutoSupport. So this can be helpful if you're going to say do an upgrade, you're going to change something, and you want to make sure that support teams have an AutoSupport recording of what the environment looked like prior to making those changes. You can just come in here and hit send ASAP. Now it's going to send an AutoSupport based on how you have the scheduled AutoSupport running. So it'll include all that information, performance logs, whatever you've chosen. If for any reason you guys don't have extended logs on and you run into a problem and support says, hey, I need your logs, they can help you through the process, but at the same time, you can choose this bundle logs, and this is going to just bundle up all the appropriate logs, including your acquisition recordings, and it's going to turn them into a zip file that you can send back to NetApp support, usually over FTP. They've got other methods. But this is where you're going to do that. So that's about everything as far as AutoSupport goes within the operational server. Now, the data warehouse does work a little bit differently, so let's go ahead and just hop over there for a quick minute. I know we're running right up on the 30 minutes, so I'll try and make this quick. So while this loads, it's worth noting, reporting back with AutoSupport as far as the data warehouse goes can definitely help if your data warehouse runs into problems. If we're talking about backups and such, never really use AutoSupport for that purpose. You'll want to use your own local backups or do something like rebuild your data warehouse from your operational server if something were to happen. But AutoSupport is still really that only method of giving our support teams that historical information about what's been happening. So for the data warehouse, just come over to troubleshooting, and normally this is not enabled. Let me just turn it off so you guys can see. Just come up here, click enable, it's ready to go. Here we can choose what's being included in the data warehouse backup. So we can do inventory only. We can do basically inventory and the database backup with all except performance. That'll keep performance out, or do all, which includes everything. It's going to be quite a bit bigger. Update will lock these settings in if you happen to change anything. And then if you want to say run that test, maybe you're going to make some changes, do something, you can go ahead and do send now. You also have the ability to actually download the troubleshooting report or create one right here. So if you click that, it's going to create that once you save it, and you can dive into it, or you can share it back with support ideally. One thing to note here, we can access all the log files from right within the data warehouse. If you click this button, it's going to take you over to all the different log files that is being sent back. Also gives us a chance to look through those if we need to. Really not a lot more going on here as far as AutoSupport goes within the data warehouse. That's how you enable it. Any questions from anyone on the line?
No, good.
Okay. Well, that's it for the presentation today. As mentioned, this is a pretty quick one. If any of you guys on the line are actually looking to turn this on and you're not using it today, or if you're having challenges with what settings you should use, please reach out to me. Shoot me an email or your assigned customer success program manager. We're happy to help. Your SEs may want to help as well. So lots of resources available, but there's a lot of benefits behind turning AutoSupport on. It's highly recommended. And again, reach out to me if you need any help. With that being said, thank you guys for taking the time to hop on and watch this. We're always looking for feedback. So if any information you felt wasn't as great as what you were looking for, please get back with me, let me know, shoot me an email. If, on the other hand, you thought this was great, it gave you what you needed to go out and turn this on or have that conversation in your organization, looking for that feedback as well. Helps me build out better presentations and make sure it's actually helping customers like you guys, move that needle forward. So thank you guys again for showing up, and hopefully I'll see you guys on the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank
no
you,
problem.
Kyle. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Same to you.
Hey, Kyle.
Thanks. Hey, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.
Mike.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to stay on here for a second? I'll show you some stuff.